that proactivity that Nora was talking about? How do we encourage, I really enjoy following Gary because his ideas and concepts about clarity and goal setting and with respect to retirement is exactly right. It's exactly right. This is how you get where you want to go. So my focus is on business. It's about how do you run your business more effectively and how do you get your business to produce better results, right? I mean, how many people here are interested in having better results throughout the last quarter of 2016, right? Y'all hope that's the case. Like I tell you, hope is really not a very good plan, right? But we do have planning, and you can add hope and faith and belief, and a good plan has created some of the greatest success stories in the history of mankind, right? So today, what I find most of the people, and for both of you here, I don't know who knows about business coaching and how it works and why it works. I have a very broad array of presentations that I do. I'm going to share one with you this morning. It's called the Sigmoid Curve. It's about business cycles. And I think you'll probably relate to it. And it's also in this little handout that I gave you. This is a brochure of all the stuff that I do from a focal point standpoint. But if you open it up in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see the Sigmoid Curve. We're going to go over that this morning and give you an opportunity to ask some questions. And at the end of this, I'll share an opportunity where you can learn a lot more about these things because I have a YouTube channel where all of these presentations are up and live. And I interview guests and we go through stuff. And so there's lots of things to do there from a subscription standpoint. You can pick up all of these things. And from a do-it-yourself standpoint, it is outstanding, right? There's no charge to join the YouTube channel. You just participate, sign up, do that kind of thing. So we're going to talk about, can everybody see that? Is that clear enough? Yes. Okay. Anybody familiar with the Sigmoid Curve? Anybody heard of that? All right, it's really just a sine curve, right? It has to do with the life cycle of a business, but also has to do with life cycles in general, right? And as we, I can't figure out how to work the buttons here. All right, so there's the curve, right? And it just, little sine curve down, up, and over. And from a business standpoint and from a life standpoint, there's three different cycles. There's three different phases. You can see those three in the chart there. And so the first one's a learning phase. So whenever we get started, we have to learn some things, right? So when you're learning something new, do you make mistakes? Right? Yeah, lots of places, right? It's one of the reasons why people don't like to do new things because there's a lot of energy and a lot of effort and a lot of errors that can happen there. And when you're learning something new, that's the time when you make the most mistakes. All right? Then we have the growth phase, right? So now you've gotten past the learning curve and we're into the growth phase. And ultimately, there's this thing called the decline phase, right? And this happens in business and this happens in life, right? We have to go through the learning thing and the growth thing, and then if we don't change, if we don't update our model, if we don't update our processes, then it'll start to drop, right? And we can all think of tons of businesses where that has happened, right? Okay, a couple of traps. Can you see that? That's the honeymoon trap, right? So when we start a new business, you have to be real careful about this particular trap. And I talk about the real estate industry. In the real estate industry, if you become a realtor, and you sell your mother's house, right, you could generate a lot of money, right? And if you sell your brother's house, you can do it. And if you sell your cousin's house, you can do it. But eventually, you run out of family members, right? And then you have to learn how to manage your business. And then you have to learn how to build relationships and how to develop business outside of the people that you know, right? And so what we tell people in this honeymoon trap is when you get that opportunity to make that initiate that money, and a lot of times when we start a new business, we have friends and family that invest and help us and support us. You need to sock that away for a rainy day, right? Because you haven't gone through the learning phase, right? So the honeymoon trap, and one of the best instances there was if you think back to the dot-com bust in 2000 when people throwing money like crazy, and those businesses just didn't last, right? Because they spent it all and they had some pretty good times, but they didn't last. All right, so the next trap you have to watch out for, this thing is called 3 feet from goal. Right, this is when you've got a good idea, a good system, a good process, and you're almost there, right? You haven't quite got there. And the idea here is that you just can't give up, right? If we keep getting to this spot and we keep shifting our strategy, which goes from business to business or idea to business to concept, we'll never get really good at it, right? And if you don't get really good, if you're not an expert, then you don't get to command the marketplace. But if you're an expert in your field, if you're an expert at what you do, then you get to command the marketplace. If you're shifting all over the place, that's just not going to happen. Once you get past that curve, right, and you've developed a system and a model that allows you to generate repeat revenue, right? This is the first goal for all of us in business, right? As the founder, we want to get to that point where we have a consistent revenue generating process. And the trap that we run in here, and again, notice it's on the up curve, there's revenue, there's results, right? right? But it's limited to what the founder or what that individual can do. Most of us, when we build a business, we build it by leveraging ourselves, right? We take ourselves and our knowledge and our intelligence and our attitude and our energy and we make something happen. But unfortunately, you can only make so much happen by yourself, right? There's only 24 hours in a day. So the founder's trap is that place where you've got everything going and your fingers and all the buttons and you're taking care of everything, but you just can't move any farther because there's just no more time. And the way out of the founder's trap is really all about systems and processes, right? When you build a systems and a process, you put a sales team in place like Mike was talking about doing. You build an internet lead generating system like Mike was talking about doing. You do a video system. If you put together reports and financials and are able to manage all that stuff without having to do it yourself, that's how you can leverage yourself a little bit farther, get to the next level. So then we take a look at what, if you can get to that spot, we take a look at this thing called the Midas trap. This is where you've been really, really successful, right? And the key to this trap here is to not take your eye off the ball, right? Because guess what? Somebody's always coming in with a new idea. Somebody's always coming up with a new system. Somebody's always come up with a new process that's designed to be a better mousetrap and take your business. That's the way it happens, right? So we have to keep our eye on the ball. We have to continue to spend some time and some energy making sure that we stay consistent with the competition, that we're delivering what our customers want, that we're doing all those kinds of things. All right, and then we have this thing called the denial trap, right? Does anybody remember BlackBerry? Does anybody remember how much of the market they carried?
All of it.
How much do they have today?
None of it.
So you thought they were okay. They thought they were okay for a long time. Apple came in with a touchscreen phone, right? And they thought they were okay. Really, they were in denial. They failed to take advantage of it, and they failed to change their model, change their business process. It's all fine, right? The signs were there. Their market share was declining, right? But they did nothing about it, and it dropped off into nowhere land, right? BlackBerry's, I don't know how big of the market share they have now. But you think of Blockbuster and some of the other big companies, Circuit City, they didn't see some things, and they fell off the trap. Now, if you are smart, that's also the opportunity phase. That's where you get the opportunity to kind of reinvent yourself, right? Reinvent your products. Does Apple do that? Right? So they might be the #1 company, the most recognized company in the world that reinvents themselves all the time. They have been to the bottom. Anybody see Steve Jobs, the movie? Right? They've been to the bottom, and they've made it back up, and iPhone 7 just came out yesterday, right?
Yep.
So this is a model here, and for every one of you, you're on this curve somewhere. Right? You don't have a choice. You're on this curve somewhere. And the question is, do you want to get somewhere else? Is going to the next step, the next space, the next thing, is that something that's valuable to you? Because if it is, then you can talk about how can I do that, right? How can I make some different decisions? How can I change what I'm doing today so that I can get to that next place? Because here's the thing. The #1 highest paid profession in the world is thinking, right? If you think about the results that you want to have and you come up with ideas to get the results you want to have, you have an opportunity to achieve those results. If you spend all your time thinking about the results you're getting today, then you're going to continue to get the results you get today. So with me, when I work with my clients, I basically say, hey, listen, I'm not necessarily for everybody. I'm kind of tough. I'm a little bit of a hard, I won't go use the last word, right? Because as a coach, I really want to make sure that you're taking care of the things that you're supposed to be taking care of. But if you're interested in a conversation, right, there's really just 4 questions in about 20 minutes that I need of your time. Or if you have a referral for me, 4 questions in about 20 minutes of their time, to really identify if this type of thing really works for you, if this really makes a big difference for you. It makes a difference for many, many people, and we've done things like grow businesses from $50,000 to $400,000 in 10 months. We've doubled and tripled revenues in a year or 2, right? And so the investment of your time and energy has some giant results. If this is something you're interested in, set up some time with me. I'm happy to talk. Any questions? I'm in the Q&A stage right now.
Too many questions.
Dan.
Okay, give us an idea of how you charge for your services.
So I do a variety of charges. I have an hourly rate. I have a retainer rate. It depends on what it is that we're doing. So there's a training component. So it may be something that you need some training on. You don't know how to do something. And then there's a coaching component, which is about how to get better at what those things are. It's just because you know how to do something doesn't mean you're good at it, right? Sales is one of those models, right? I know how sales works. You can go read any number of books on how sales work, but that doesn't make you good. It doesn't make you an expert, right? So coaching is all about getting you to that expertise level. So it really depends. So there's an hourly rate and a retainer rate, and there's a workshop rate and all kinds of different things. I set that up with the individual client depending on what their needs are.
Is there a
particular business or industry that you specialize in?
So there's a particular business or industry that I have some specific knowledge in, right? So I'm very familiar with the construction industry and the technology industry. I spent a lot of time in project management in those two industries, and I know them very, very well. However, what I found is that it applies to every industry. I mean, one of the first clients I got was a doctor, which I can't say I have a medical background, I don't. However, setting up his staff and setting up his system so that he could go from 4 days a week of work to 2 days a week of work, that's what he wanted to do. And so we set that as our goal, we set up our systems, and put it together, and 4 months later, he was working 2 days a week.
Wow, great. One last question.
You didn't mention about Brian Tracy.
So Focal Point, so Businesswhitt, that's my company, is a Focal Point franchise. Focal Point is a Brian Tracy organization. Brian Tracy's been, he's about 70 now. He's been a public speaker for 30, 40 years. He's trained about 2 million different salespeople. He's written 60 different books. And a lot of the material and information that we have here is stuff that he's built and he's designed. And I can turn around and just deploy it, right? That's what makes it so much faster. We're not inventing, we're reusing. We're making it better, we're maximizing it.